Hello everyone, thanks for joining this session on the Community Renewal Fund. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eddie Fraser, Chief Executive of East Ayrshire Council. I'm pleased to join my colleague Joe McLachlan, our Chief Financial Officer, in giving an overview of the Community Renewal Fund. During the session, we want to share with you the national and local priorities in respect to the fund and also the process for application. I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but East Ayrshire is just a fantastic place to live and work. But like all other areas, we've got our own opportunities and challenges. You'll find for this session that we hope during this financial year 21-22 to take an offer that the Community Renewal Fund affords us to support us to make the most of the opportunities and mitigate some of the challenges. We all know the past year has been like no other, and I think we've yet to fully understand the impact the pandemic will have on our economy, our young people, and longer-term well-being and mental health. What we do know is the pandemic has impacted on us all. We also know that for many families and individuals, and for many of our businesses, the impact has been disproportionate with far greater harm. Without deliberate action, there'll be a profound and long-lasting impact on the well-being of our communities. So, as we look to the future at what action we can take, and take quickly, we need to reflect and acknowledge that's happened in the last year. But importantly, and I think that's what today's about, this will be a time for renewal. We've all had to reassess that's important to us and the services and support that are vital to our communities. Recently in the budget, the Council invested £2.6 million in recovery for 21-22 to try and kickstart some of that and focus some of its support on those who have been disproportionately harmed. This is an opportunity to build on that, an opportunity for up to £3 million extra to come to East Ayrshire to build on that. Time for applications is tight, so this is about playing to our strengths. Building on what we know we can do, supporting our local economies and communities, thinking creatively about how we use local resources. So this in the short term is an opportunity that the Community Renewal Fund will support recovery of the pandemic and be a bridge to delivering future ambition. We want to make sure no one's left behind in this. The Community Renewal Fund is for 1 year only, so we need to make sure any investment we receive, whilst linked to the national objectives of the fund, is also connected to our local priorities. That will help make things sustainable. For our local priorities, I think we just need to look no further than our own community plan. Everything we do as a council is focused and prioritised in the community plan. It's providing us a strategic context around how we want to work and what we want to achieve. It gives us confidence working in that way for the Community Renewal Fund, because we're required in that to work in partnership. And our strong record of partnership work with communities and community planning partners has stood us in great stead in recent times, and it's something we want to build on. We've been reviewing our community plan recently, and this is opportune because we've recently spoke to lots of people about what our priorities should be locally and how we should focus on them. They're not surprising to what you would think. Our partners and stakeholders have told them what's important to them is sustainability in the environment, so climate change and infrastructure, that aligns really well, with the Community Renewal Fund. Inclusive economic growth, particularly around digital, and again, one of the things for the fund. Our children and young people, including the Young Person's Guarantee. How can we look at making sure that our young people in particular get into work? And people who may have been excluded over the past year do that. There have been areas where poverty has been exacerbated, and although this is not about directly eliminating poverty, it's about if you get people into work, if you give people good training, that'll help mitigate and undo some of the harms. And of course, community wellbeing, supporting not just our most vulnerable residents, we should all feel safe in and proud of our communities, and that will help us recover from the pandemic. In our bids for the Community Renewal Fund, this is what we think should be reflected as our local priorities alongside, the national priorities. I'm going to just pass to Joe, who will lead you through an overview of the fund. I hope you leave this session with more information about this ambition and how you might want to get involved, and that will help you see opportunities in joining with other partners in making bids to the fund to the benefit of local communities. You'll also find more information about the fund, the application forms, and in due course, a recording of this session on our website. So thanks very much. I hope this session goes well for you and you can, take something from it. So I'll now pass over to Joe McLaughlin.
Eddie, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So, as Eddie says, it's a brief overview of what is the Community Renewal Fund, and in doing so, talking through the aims and objectives of the fund. It's a new fund. It's a transition fund to all intents and purposes. It takes us from EU funding through to the Shared Prosperity Fund. There are key elements of it. Eddie touched on them: tight timescales, a link to UK government priorities and also to our local priorities. They're intertwined with a whole set of investment themes that you could touch on and they drill down in terms of the information provided by the prospectus. The UK government has identified 100 priority places throughout the UK, and I'm pleased to say that East Ayrshire has been identified as a priority place and as such eligible for priority to the Community Renewal Fund. But in all of this, it's going to be a really competitive process, and it's important that we work collaboratively and that all bidders work with ourselves and with themselves to try and make the best bid, that bid that will be successful for the organisation and for the people and young people throughout East Ayrshire. We'll touch on who can apply, and I'm pleased to say it's really general, and how that application takes place and when, and that's the bit that's going to be a bit tricky. And that's why we've made a timeline. That timeline is there to support anyone who believes that they can submit a bid. And thereafter, we touch on just how those successful projects will be managed. As Eddie says, we're recording this session, and we have further information on our website. We've locked the session in terms of participants, but we welcome questions. So the chat function is there and is available for use throughout this. But bear in mind that we will also take a list of those and do a frequently asked questions and set them on our website as well. And that kind of shows that collaborative and that partnership that we're going to have with the council and yourselves to get us through this very tight process to try and get as much money as we can for East Ayrshire. So the fund itself is set out in a prospectus. The UK government has compiled and published a prospectus on the Community Renewal Fund. It sets out a whole number of details, but essentially when you drill it all away, there are 5 overarching objectives. Supporting a smooth transition, and that transition is from EU funding, and for those of us who've been involved with that for years, we know that that's about claims and the like. So a move from that EU funding, which we know ends in December 2023, towards that UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and we know that's going to be available in 2022. And as Eddie touched on, in the year we're in, 21-22, there is this Community Renewal Fund, the stepping stone from EU funding to the Shared Prosperity Fund. Essentially, the fund seeks to really promote and reward innovation and do that through pilots. So it's essentially a first bite, you could say, at the Shared Prosperity Fund, about identifying those projects that you want and those different ways of working, both with yourself, with collaboration with others, and with other public sector organisations. It is a new way of working between UK government and places, that direct input, that evaluation that will take place between ourselves and you, if you're successful, and all of that being led by and directed by, at times, UK government. And it's about levelling up, and we hear that time and time again, and creating opportunities. But it's about building capacity and maximising wherever we can that funding envelope that will come to you and come to East Ayrshire, and that's really important in all of this. So the key elements of the fund, we know that it's got a pot of £220 million for 1 year only. It's a revenue fund, 90% revenue, and that's helpful. What we do know from our discussions with UK government is that they want to see large bids. They want to see bids that start at £500,000 and go up. And so you get a sense, a flavour that they're looking for collaboration, and that's going to be important through this. The good thing in terms of the Community Renewal Fund and that stepping stone, we're stepping out of EU funding, which was always based on match funding. The Community Renewal Fund has no match funding requirements. What it does say, however, in the prospectus is that applicants are encouraged to lever in other funding opportunities wherever possible. And that's helpful. And that takes a bit of pressure off, given the timescales that we know you're going to be dealing with. The next part's quite tricky too. Projects must be delivered and funding fully spent by March 22. So there's no opportunity to commit before the end of the financial year and spend after it. Government's quite clear that spending, every piece of spending must take place in the 21-22 financial year. So, in the prospectus and in the Community Renewal Fund, we're told there are 4 investment priorities and themes. And you can see straight away that they link back to, and you can almost touch back to EU funding. It's about that investment in skills and local businesses and communities in place, and more importantly, supporting people into employment. So all those employability EU programmes that were there, you can see that they were stepped away, but it's not that much of a change. The good news is that in the bids that you'll submit, you can either hit one of those 4 priorities or all of them. So you can focus really hard on one, or you can seek opportunities, perhaps working with partners in collaboration to touch on more than one. What we do know is there's no ring fencing between these 4. And so you won't be told, for example, you have to spend 20% here or 30% there. It's all based on your bid, and that's helpful too. I just want to drill down into what these investment priorities actually mean. So in the prospectus, it says that they want to support investment in skills, and it explodes that a bit further. It talks about work-based training, retraining, upskilling and reskilling, and promoting digital inclusion, digital skills and inclusion. It touches back on what Eddie says about that the last year and the challenges that people have faced. And this fund provides all of us with an opportunity to take that funding and to work on some of those projects that we have perhaps ready to go, or we can enhance further because of the availability of this funding. In terms of investment in local businesses, you're seeing this theme of entrepreneurship and innovation being really at the fore. And in this one as well, the government, through the Community Renewal Fund, begins to lay down some markers about its zero carbon policy and decarbonisation. And so in any bid for that would seek to invest in local businesses, these are the 3 elements that the government would like to see, would need to see in that bid. In terms of communities in place, again, we touch on that net zero target, local energy projects, green space and rural connectivity. And that could mean anything. That could be employability, it could be any sort of digital connectivity too. And so we're seeing again here this innovation in that pilots. Things that could maybe be a pilot for Community Renewal Fund become a green light for Shared Prosperity Fund, and that's really important. That stepping stone concept is really helpful. In terms of supporting people into employment, well, again, it's about pilots that seek to address supporting people on their journey into employment, sustainable employment, addressing barriers, and essentially helping people gain basic skills. And I know that from the work that's done in the past with our community groups and our partners that we can already tick a whole number of those boxes in terms of supporting people into employment. In terms of the fund itself, it asks you to hit 2 sets of stones. It tells you to hit the UK government's priorities, and they've been listed there, those four, but it also asks you to refer to those local dimensions, those local priorities. As Eddie touched on, that's in your community planning delivery plans. And you can see straight away here that you begin to see that connectivity between the CRF and our own plans. So you see in this one here, you talk about low carbon. We talk about connectivity and that clean energy and digital technology. Within Ayrshire Growth Deal and the community wealth building aspect of our plans, you begin to see supports around businesses and that whole emphasis on delivering inclusive growth. And moving on to caring for Ayrshire, another very important theme for the council. You see fair work, you see development of land and assets, employability and skills for retraining and upskilling. And in the last one, they're just helping young people particularly into the world of work. And the final part around renewal and transformation. Again, you see the young person's guarantee that Eddie touched on, and you see that whole aspect of school, college and apprenticeship places. So the touchstones are around priorities, both national and local, but it's really helpful to see that there's a great alignment between those two sets of priorities, which should mean for us that there is an easy access to that element of the bids and to the application process. I mentioned about priority places. The government has identified 100 priority places across the UK for this fund. We are a priority place, and as such, we can bid for a maximum of £3 million. So that's really important for East Ayrshire. That's £3 million. That's a new fund that's suddenly opened up for this year. You can do the math straight away and work out that 100 times 3 isn't 220 million, and so it will be a competitive bid process. But what we do know is that priority places, whilst not guaranteed funding, will certainly have a lower scoring threshold to meet in terms of the shortlisting process, and that's really helpful too. So, as part of the fund, a priority place, a local authority, is defined as being the lead authority. And they have some actions and responsibilities placed upon them. So as East Ayrshire, we must invite bids. We started that last week. We opened our website for expressions of interest. And because of that, you're on this information event this afternoon. We have to undertake constructive engagement with partners and for bidders. And I think that's really helpful because we have a great community planning process already in place. And the channels that we use and have used over the years will continue to be used for this. The council has to appraise and shortlist projects. And also, once we've done that, to submit a shortlist from East Ayrshire down to London and down to UK government. What happens there is that a more rigorous evaluation process takes place on the bids, almost in all the bids across the UK. And successful applicants are then identified by UK government. We are given notification, the project is given notification, and then the UK government hand back to East Ayrshire to monitor the project through until March 22. And so again, you're beginning to see that linkage almost to EU funding, that local authority role in terms of support and in terms of monitoring and evaluation. And monitoring and evaluation is certainly an important aspect of the Community Renewal Fund. So who can apply to this fund? Well, as I said earlier, it's fairly wide and it's listed on this page. So public sector bodies, councils can apply, colleges, universities, private sector companies and registered charities are all eligible to apply, as are community organisations and registered community organisations can also apply. A couple of caveats. In terms of the private sector bids that would seek to further that business by perhaps offsetting staff costs or buying specific equipment would fail. And so it's those employability and those investment themes that you're seeing there. And because of the partnership approach and the collaborative approach, individuals can't apply to the fund. So it's a two-bid competitive bid process, and you can see that here. Stage 1 is to the council. Now, the stop gap date for this, the end date for all of us is the 18th of June, noon on the 18th of June. That's the deadline East Ayrshire Council has to submit our evaluated bids to UK Government. And so we need to work back from that. And that's why we opened the expressions of interest last week. We're having this event today, because we think we need to close our bids on the 21st of May, on Friday the 21st of May. So bid applications in by that date. And that's because we expect to spend the time between then and the 18th of June appraising those bids and giving advice and support to applicants, because it's important, we believe, that because the government are expecting bids no less than £500,000 and certainly above that figure, then there would need to be some form of support and collaboration taking place between the 24th of May and the 17th of June. So, as Eddie said, we can be in a position to be rest assured that we've sent away to London the best bid that we can, or best bids that we can, that will bring that maximum £3 million into East Ayrshire. And if successful, this slide just talks about how that would be managed. So, as I said, we would provide a funding agreement with each project. And as you can imagine, this is a fairly new fund. It was only launched last month by UK Government. And so elements of this side of it are still a bit blank. And so when we get more details on that, we will certainly put that on our website and on the Community Renewal Fund page. It's likely that payments to you, the projects, would be in arrears and would follow a submission of a claim. And it's a well-travelled road for us. We know that process and we know it well. And the second point about being based on actual expenditure and based on invoices. And it's that audit factor that we've seen over the years with council funds and also with EU funds. I think we can be assured that that's going to carry forward into the CRF. So how to apply? Well, the bids must be on the Community Renewal Fund application. So it's a 19-page application form. It's quite a subjective form. It's a form that asks you a whole series of questions as a project, and it gives you a maximum of 500 words to answer every question. So going into the detail, I think will be important to try and summarise that, to try and hit keywords and linkages are going to be really important too. What the government are saying is that they will update their website with any further details when they have it, and we'll do that. We'll mirror that on our own website too. Unfortunately, bids on any other format besides the application form will fail. And so on the 21st of May, we would ask that potential bids are submitted to the email listed on this slide, and this is also included in the specific details in our website and on the Community Renewal Fund page. And as I said, submission date 21st of May, and that gives us time to come back and discuss with you certain aspects of your bids. So the appraisal, this monitoring and evaluation is key. And I would implore you to go to the UK Government's website or go to our own CRF page and read the prospectus. It's a fairly large document, and it sets out whole aspects of CRF, including how projects will be appraised. So in the first appraisal, which is at the council, for us, we've been given a gateway criteria, a pass or a fail. So it's important that your bids look at, eligibility. Can you hit those 4 themes? Can you wrap a project around one or more of those themes? Can you deliver in 21-22? And I'll touch on that in a moment, because the timescale will be extremely tight. Will you have compliance arrangements in place that can certainly provide assurance from the audit function? And does your bid meet the policy fit of both the UK Government's themes of the Community Renewal Fund and also East Ayrshire's themes in terms of our Community Planning Delivery Plan? Again, linking to those net zero objectives. Now, what is reassuring is that they would expect the 4 themes to hit some element of net zero, with the exception of those that are dealing with employability. So employability bids or employment bids do not have to demonstrate any reach out to the green climate or net zero. And in all of this, they need to demonstrate innovative approaches. And that's the first set of criteria. So we will assess them around realistic milestones, the risks and mitigations, and do you need this funding? And that's going to be something you need to consider. As for the project you're doing, is there an absolute need for you to draw upon the Community Renewal Fund? We'll also look at your monitoring and evaluation arrangements, because those arrangements will be passed to us by UK government should you be successful. And there are other factors just around, the bones of a normal bid that you will do day in and day out. You've got a clear rationale for the project. You know your costs. You know your costs, your cash flow. You know your costs you're going to have to put out and clear in arrears. You can describe the activities and the outcomes and impacts, and any other interdependencies with perhaps any other partners or providers, or any collaborative approach you want to take. Importantly, and this might seem as a bind, but I think it's perhaps an opportunity, consideration of sustainability after CRF funding ends, and go back to that stepping stone concept again, that if you're successful in the CRF, it might be a stepping stone, even a springboard into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And in all of this around value for money, due diligence by yourselves, compliance with state aid, or it's now called UK subsidy control, and above all, deliverability. Can it be done and completed and wrapped up by 31st of March 22? And so where to find technical information? Well, I would direct you to the Community Renewal Fund page on the Council's website, or go to the UK Government's website and search for the CRF, and you'll find that a technical guidance has been produced. There's one produced for local government and for the authorities, and there's a specific piece of guidance produced for organisations considering submitting a bid, and that's really helpful. And I would suggest and recommend that you read that, because that deals with some of the things on this page around even costs and branding and the like. And I know from a throwback to EU days, eligible expenditure and overheads, and that's an important element to this fund too, and that's included in the technical guidance. And so just other things to consider. Monitoring and evaluation is fairly high up in the agenda. It's got its own section in the technical notes for applicants and deliverers. Now, we know that from past experience, demonstrating your successful monitoring and evaluation does come at a cost. And so the prospectus allows successful bidders, successful applicants, to use 1 to 2% of the reward, a minimum of £10,000, to assist with developing those targets and those monitoring and evaluations. And I've got here the 3 links that can take you to the documents, but as I said, they are already on our website. And just like any other bid, it's important that you top and tail it, and the end should be around the impact on East Ayrshire. And the Council, as you know, has a really helpful guide, East Ayrshire by numbers. It sets out details on our population, employment numbers, and a whole raft of other information that we would expect to see mentioned in your bid, because it would give us that assurance that you've thought about that connectivity and that impact on those local priorities that we touched on earlier. And in terms of the timeline, this isn't perhaps the best slide to keep to last, but we close, the UK government closes the door on the Community Renewal Fund on the 18th of June at noon. Quite clear, a minute past noon, and the bid will be rejected. So working back from that, the dates are as listed. We think, based on what we know so far, that the earliest a bid could start a project could start would be around late July, beginning of August. So it doesn't leave that much time for a bid to be hit the ground, run and close by March 22. But what I would say is that this is an opportunity, and just touching on Eddie's opening comments, it's £3 million to East Ayrshire. It is tight timescales and probably 6, 7, 8 months to deliver. But it's, if you view it as that stepping stone, that springboard to the Shared Prosperity Fund, you're in the early. And there's possibilities and opportunities there to take this forward in transition, as I said at the start, from that EU funding, Community Renewal Fund, and hopefully into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That concludes this information event. As Eddie said, we are recording this and we will place this on our website. You know how East Ayrshire works. If you have any queries at all, use the email that was listed earlier, and we can come back to you quickly on any comments or points that you have. And we'll look forward to receiving any bid from you on the 21st of May. And you'll be expected to hear from us thereafter when we have those 3 to 4 weeks to get those bids in, work with you, polish them, and send the successful ones to the UK government. So on that note, I'll end the event. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope it's been helpful. And as always, come back to us if you need any further support or any clarification. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.